When I look at my life and where I am now, belief is definitely absolutely critical. Every journey starts with the first step forward, and that is true. The plateau of Antarctica, which is at about 11,000 feet, there's nothing. There's no entity. There's no virus, no bacteria. It's pristine. I got to the summit of Everest this very day at 6:55 in the morning today, in 2011.
Hi, I'm Cary, and welcome to the Eat Nourish Love podcast. For over 20 years, I've created events, raised over 4 million for good causes, and been lucky enough to meet some incredible people along the way. This podcast is about exploring stories and insights that really shape us, with inspiring guests from wellness, business, self-care, and personal growth. It's about learning to trust our intuition and discovering what truly matters, and how, with hard work, belief, and tenacity, we can make so many things happen. So Justin, I cannot tell you how excited I am to have you on this podcast, the Eat Nourish Love podcast. If there was one person who I wanted to be on this podcast, it would be you. Now don't blush, please.
I am blushing, and I also know it's not true. I mean, that's just, you're too sweet.
So this podcast is all about belief, tenacity, hard work can make so many things happen. And I've watched you for years, and we worked together certainly 20 years ago, and I'd like to cover that in this. But Justin, welcome to the podcast firstly.
Well, thank you for having me. Absolute privilege.
So you've been to the top of Everest, to the South Pole, to the North Pole. You've sailed around the world. You've crossed the deserts on horseback, is it? And then motorbikes in Mongolia. I mean, what is it that you haven't done?
Oh God, Caroline, I think I'm sort of rather bizarre. I'm the youngest of 4 kids, so I've always been trying to play catch up and keep up with my siblings, and I don't know. I'm just really very lucky because I'm not very bright, and I'm just very curious about what's in front of me. And so to answer your question, there's a lot. You know, I think that I always think there's a lot. I mean that list that you just reeled off, that all really started around every sort of young individual's life starts with looking at old school explorers. And, you know, it's very weird to think that just over 100 years ago, I mean, literally just over 100 years ago, no one had been to the North Pole or the South Pole or the top of Everest or sailed around the world or been to the moon. And, you know, we now sort of take it all as verbatim, that this is just sort of, you know, it's just what people do. But still, it's a hell of a challenge, and it's super exciting. And so, yeah, I suppose that's what really fueled it. But hopefully there's lots more, you know, there's space.
So, you know, you're a father of 2, you've got a gorgeous wife, and, you know, and it must have been quite scary sometimes doing some of these challenges and leaving them behind. And I think you said, you know, I think 1 in 10 doesn't come down from Everest. Is that still right?
Well, no, it's not right anymore. But when we did it, I climbed, funny enough, I mean, it's so funny that we're talking today because I got to the summit of Everest this very day at 6:55 in the morning today, in 2011. So
No,
14
that's
years
crazy.
ago, literally today. I mean, look, in my story, Tamsin, my better half, is really the linchpin. She's held everything together. Not only do we have kids, we've obviously got a business together, and but I mean, you are very, you know, we go back a long time, and I've seen it with you and Richard and your kids, and I think that as with all these things, what you have to do with people's beliefs, you know, whatever your aspirations are or your dreams, if you are lucky enough to go and follow them, then you have to know that you have someone who's incredibly durable and dependable, who can hold the home front. And luckily that I have that. But I always say to Tamsin that, yes, I'm going off and doing these things, but I miss everyone. You miss everyone, hugely. I mean, the last trip I did, which was that full crossing of Antarctica, I was away for 3 months.
Yeah, it's a long time.
And we were on the ice for 62 days. So for 62 days, I had no contact. So it's a bit bizarre. It's very selfish. You can't really deny that. But I think equally, hopefully Tam trusts me and knows that, ultimately we're pretty safe. I think the military helps a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I was in the army with your hubby, who I have enormous respect for, and you just learn a lot of very valuable skills around risk assessment, around how you tackle these things, how you prepare, and all of that makes that decision a bit easier. I think for both parties. I think it makes it easier for the people who are left at home, because they know that you're pretty thorough and hopefully diligent. But yes, you do have to you are, going to step into the unknown.
I think that's very true in military life, because, being on the other side where, your husband goes off for 6 months, whatever, you don't know where they're going to be, you don't know, and we didn't have contact then, did we? There was no phones, no. There was no contact. It was these blueies that occasionally came.
Yeah. I mean,
it was crazy.
No, I was just going to say about blueies, it's funny you mentioned those, but I found a box the other day of letters that I got when I was in the first Gulf War, and it's vast. I mean, it's a huge box, absolutely crammed with blueies. And I worked out that I got 5 letters a day while I was out there, on average. 5 letters, and they were from people like you and from friends' parents, and I mean the most beautiful letters. And it's strange how we have sort of lost that. Everything is so quick now with, and it was quite emotional actually. I was very thrilled to see it all because it's real and it's sort of, people have sat down and really thought about what they were writing. And anyway, progress is progress, I suppose.
Absolutely. So you were telling me, Rich was telling me a funny story about how it all came about them sailing around the world with the Whitbread. So because you joined the army, hadn't you, at that stage? So how did that all start?
Well, I grew up in the Mediterranean. My folks are big sailors, and so I could sort of sail before I could walk, really. It's the truth. And I always sort of coveted we used to race dinghies very competitively, and I coveted doing this race called the Whitbread Round the World race, which is the sort of I suppose the top of the pile. And I was very lucky because when I was soldiering, Richard was one of my bosses, and an opportunity came up to sail for Britain on a boat which was part manned by the combined services. And basically, I was asked if I would like to go, and I was like, I mean, absolutely, with the caveat that if we put you forward, then you have to get on the boat. And I think a couple of 2,500 people applied, and they were looking for 20 places, of which I rather arrogantly said, yeah, I'll get on the boat. And I think your hubby was part of the chain of command who said, well, off you go. And so that's how that started. And very lucky too. I literally didn't put any uniform on for 2 years, and went and did the race, which was again, very poignant moment for me, and super lucky.
So yeah, it is extraordinary, isn't it? Because it's just that goes back to some of the thought process of, you have to ask. If you don't ask, you have to, and it can always be a no, can't it? And I think you and I have done lots of that throughout, because you've obviously raised a lot of money as well through all your expeditions. And then, and I think if I'm right in saying, it's 20 years ago that you did the polar race with Christina Franco, isn't it? 2005.
Yeah, 2005.
So
which again is mad.
So that was, and quote me if I'm wrong, but I think you walked into a drinks party, picked up a glass of champagne, went and spoke to her and said, what are you up to? And she told you what she wanted to do, and you said, I'm coming with you. Was that
Well, it
about
was
it?
actually a wedding.
Oh, right.
It was a wedding, and all the rest is absolutely true. She said, I've heard about this mad race, and endurance races are, per se, they're the bizarrest thing. Someone will come up with a mad idea where the objective is pretty tough physically, deprive people of sleep and food, and watch the carnage that happens, and then you scoop people up. And then some mad bugger thought, well, let's do it in the high Arctic, where you're on sea ice, which is precarious. You've got polar bears who are hungry and dangerous. Anyway, Christina got hold of this and anyway approached me, and I was like, damn right, let's do it. And then thanks to you and where you were working at the time, if we're allowed to mention New Ways, you sponsored us, and the rest is history. So yeah, it was an amazing 450 miles.
And you won it, didn't you? And also it was funny because they've never sponsored anything before, and they never did afterwards. It was just like it was like a random thing. But I said, if you don't ask, you don't get. And I just remember when you were training, because we did a lot of the videos. You gave me so much videos because you took all the supplements, because New Ways did all these health supplements, and you took them with you. And I just remember seeing pictures of you pulling logs around Regent's Park.
Yeah, we did. I mean, funny enough, it's an interesting race, that, because when we arrived, so we started from a place called Resolute Bay in sort of high Alaska, and there were 7 teams, and they were all really sort of alpha. It was all very alpha, and you could be a team of a 4, a 3, or a 2. And Christina and I did it as a team of 2, as you well know. And when we arrived, I could just see everyone looking at us and going, we're going to eat you up. We're just going to eat you up. And we did win it. And it was just under 500 miles. It was a long way and quite precarious. One team got attacked by a polar bear, and, it was pretty real stuff. And we won in no uncertain terms because of Christina. And we were such a brilliant team. I was probably stronger than her, but what she brought around making that team more efficient meant that we won. And we knocked everyone out of the park, and they couldn't believe it. And misconception is very interesting. And I think that it's good that the balance of how people perceive people's attributes and what they can do has changed now.
Yeah.
I mean, people like Ellen MacArthur, when she sailed around the world, and I know Ellen, and she's like 5'0". She grew up in a county which has no water, and she is phenomenal. And so it was great. It was a very humbling and good experience, actually, of which we are very thankful to you, really.
Well, and she was the first Italian ever to reach the North Pole, and I think, if I'm right in saying it, we went viral in Italy, and including the picture of her in her green bikini.
I know. She's a nutter. I mean, honestly, she's a nutter.
Oh,
fabulous, though. Very fabulous.
So tell me about the other ones. So how many times have you done the North Pole?
I've been to the North Pole 3 times, and then I've done the magnetic North Pole once.
So what's the difference between the North Pole and the magnetic, for anyone listening who doesn't know that?
So the geographic North Pole is if you put a line through the Earth, the axis of what the Earth spins on, the top and bottom of that is the geographic North and South Pole, obviously at the bottom. The magnetic is obviously, if you point a compass, it won't go to the geographic North Pole. Okay. It'll go slightly off. So it's actually about 500 miles off the geographic North Pole. It's still in the middle of nowhere, and it moves. The magnetic pole is always moving, so it moves every year.
So is it quite common for people to go to the magnetic North Pole, or not? Is it quite unusual?
Very uncommon. Very uncommon. Yeah. I mean, most people will go to the geographic, but look, Cary, the great sadness in all this is I first went to the geographic North Pole about 30 years ago, and we skied there, we man-hauled there. and you're on sea ice, obviously, so it's moving. So you can, the ice is always moving, and it tends to be roughly about hopefully 3 feet to about a meter in depth.
Yeah.
And the last time I went, you can hardly do it without swimming now. I mean, the ice is so thin.
No.
And we hear all of these sort of stats and things, but for any one individual to have seen that change in a tiny nanosecond of time is actually enormously frightening, and we all really need to sit up and take stock of this, because it's real.
No, there are things that you've seen that no one ever see in their lifetime. I mean, the extraordinary places that you've been, and actually to identify that, and that is sad. That is sad. And then, how many times have you been to the South Pole?
I've been to the South Pole, the geographic South Pole, 3 times, but I've been to the coast a few times as well, which I would really push anybody who can to do, which is a phenomenal thing, because you see, I mean, obviously humans can't live down there really, but there is such an abundance of wildlife who all live so well together. And I mean, I've stood on beaches with like 5 million penguins and with elephant seals and orcas going up and down the beach, and it's healthy. The food chain is well balanced and is in harmony, and it's mainly in harmony because there's no bloody humans there. And it's a very, very, very special thing, and uplifting, life-enhancing thing to see. So yes, I mean, basically extremely lucky, because I've done a crossing. I did a 2,500 kilometer crossing of the middle of Antarctica. So I really have seen all of it at its true majesty.
It's extraordinary what you've seen, and along the way. So you've raised a lot of money, haven't you, for charity? And one was with Walking with the Wounded, I know, because that's something we support as well.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I've always felt. I felt 2 things. I think you should always pay your way. I think if you're raising money, it's important for people to understand that the money you're raising is going to something which hopefully is going to do some good, whether it's the message or whether it's actually in hard cash. And also, I think people are ignited. They get ignited about old school stories. I mean, I talk a lot in schools, and I always think if you tell any youngster a story about an ocean or a mountain, you can captivate them. It's just in us to want to go, and it's a very good platform for hopefully raising awareness. One of the best things I've done, I think, is I've taken wounded soldiers, always from Richard and your hubby and my old regiment, and been to the North and South Pole and various things. We did an amazing trip replicating Ernest Shackleton's Endeavour expedition, when he took a small boat from the peninsula up to South Georgia, which was an amazing feat in itself. And to see these young lads who are really quite badly bust up just be exemplary and really showcase, one, what the human can do, and one must never forget that humans are meant to excel, and you see it in spadefuls as to a tough journey that they've all had, and then they suddenly find some kind of reason to put one foot in front of the other, and then that becomes a very glorious rebirth for them, really, and they go and do phenomenal things. And so yes, I think it's important to try, and philanthropy is probably the most powerfully rewarding thing anyone can do at any level. It doesn't matter what the level is. It's a important thing to try and look into?
I think it's extraordinary. I'm not sure how I got involved in it. I think actually from an early age, we talk about here as parents and what your parents did. My parents did a lot of that, and they raised I used to get involved in doing all sorts of things as a child. So I think that it was sort of in me. It was something that I just felt, and I think whatever I do, there will always be that aspect. There will always be a charitable side to what I do, because it just is in my veins.
But what you know, again, I have seen what you've done for years, decades, and it's when it's true, it's a true calling, and that is a very, very good thing. And you sleep well. You're going to sleep well. You do, it's all encompassing really, and us Brits are very good at it actually. Fundamentally, I mean, if you look at comic relief and you look at, sport aid, all those things. We're just very good at it. We're a very compassionate nation, and luckily there are people sort of at the driving it all, such as you, who can galvanise direction, and it's important. It's important, and I don't know. The older I get, the more I want to do, and the more I enjoy it. Actually, I really do. I think it's fabulous.
So we talk about parenting, and I know because I listened to your TED talk. I listened to your TED talk, and I've listened to it before, and it sends shivers down my spine. Honestly, some of the messages in there, it's just incredible. But it was the particular thing about your parents.
Is this when you wake up? Is this when you wake up?
Actually, I do it when I'm driving. But when you're about your parents and what there was a couple of things that they sort of instilled in you as children, isn't there? What were they?
Well, my folks were very cool, actually, I have to say. I had quite a charmed upbringing. As I said, we grew up in Malta at a very nice time. It was quite military, and it's a very soft country, nice people. We never locked doors and stuff. And we were sailors, and I think fundamentally they wanted their 4 kids to be interested in life, basically, which means to be curious and to be brave and to understand that if you want to go and really smell things and see them and experience them, well, you have to roll your sleeves up, and sometimes you're going to step into an environment which might not be familiar, might be frightening, might be lots of things, but there will be a reward at the end of it. And secondly, they wanted us to be interesting as people. And what that really means is go and do the first thing, and then you will become interesting because you become colourful and you've experienced things, you've seen different cultures, different people, and it will make you an interesting person. And to do that even further, get stuck into things, learn things and want to get better. And I think fundamentally, I mean, a lot of, I'm sure your previous people that you've talked to, they will all have the same kind of raison d'etre around wanting to learn and to improve. I mean, I'm fascinated by improvement, and if I could, I would just go back to school. I mean, I would happily today go to school and have classes all day and play sport all afternoon. I'd be thrilled. But fundamentally, it comes down to not being afraid to put your hand up and say, listen, I'm pants at this. I mean, I'm really not any good at it, but just teach me and I'll learn, and hopefully I'll get somewhere. And as soon as you realize, it doesn't matter what, we tend to, as we get older, have the misconception that, oh, I can't start that because people will look at me and say, well, you should have done that years ago, and it's not true. It's so rewarding, and it affects everything. It affects, your relationships. Work is always the same. If you're not happy, go and do something else. And so it's an important lesson to learn, I think. You were
also saying, I think you said before, that it's very easy that as you get older, the belief side, that it gets chipped away. And I think there was a story about your father and the piano, that he said that well, you can repeat it. Which it's your true. Story. What was it?
Well, my siblings are all pretty musical, and When I came along, number four, and I'd go to my piano lessons, which I did for a handful of years, and I'd go kicking and screaming. And my mum eventually was like, "Listen, I've just had enough of this. Do you want to play the piano?" And I was like, "Absolutely not. I don't. I want to go and build a go-kart and go. And anyway, many years later, many years later, I was having lunch with my dad, and I was like chastising him around why, why didn't you just, bully me to keep doing. And he looked at me, the wise old fox he was, and he said, "I just don't get that, because how I'd look at it is say, if I start playing the piano now, I'll be fantastic in 10 years. And he's right. We harper a lot of blame on circumstances that happened before without taking ownership around, well, I can sort it out. And also the sorting out is actually really very pleasurable. And it's a frame of mind. But having said that, Karen, when I say that my son was playing, as an example, he was quite good on the guitar. And one day, well, not one day, over a few years, he was like, "Listen, I just got so much stuff I need to do at school, and the guitar is not one of my leading kind of aspirations. I want to stop it." And we kept him for a couple of years, and eventually he got bigger than me, and he said, "I want to stop the guitar." I was like, "Okay." And so it happens, and you have to we all have to get there in our own way, however that might be. And you have, hopefully, coming back to the army, coming back to, say, Richard, you have mentors who see something in their peers and help them. And that is another very, very valuable lesson to appreciate and to understand that is a rite of passage, and you hopefully will do that with others as you get more experience and get older, but also to listen, and to understand that it's all right. It's all right to ask questions or not be very good.
Exactly, and it's funny because actually I did that with Annabelle and ballet and her tap dancing, and I just thought it was such a great discipline, and there were times, and so for 2 years she did it, but actually that discipline is in her, with the way she works in her life.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, sometimes, and it's the skills and some of the things that we're talking about, the belief and curiosity, which I think is such an important word and such an important thing to be curious about things. They're skills that go across. They're not just for you who goes off to the North Pole, South Pole. There are people in business. It's everything. They're just key assets, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, I think, belief is a wonderful thing in any guise, and it sort of comes back to confidence. How confident am I as an individual? I said it before, but fundamentally we are meant to excel. We are really the most brilliant machines, and if you throw that into follow your dreams and do things which do fuel your soul, understand that on that journey you will fail. You're going to trip up and you're going to graze your knees, and that is not a bad thing. It's a blessing, really, because next time I need to go left rather than right. And to also understand that the journey is not simple. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be physical, it could be mental, it could be anything. It's young Blakey, my son's doing his GCS, his A levels at the moment, and I remember that really difficult bit of I need to sit down and really digest all this information, and yet I really want to be outside running and jumping, and you have to learn how to do it. It's brutal, it's hard. I think it's more hard now, oddly, with all these phones, but that journey all ties into the belief of who you are, how you can do things, and you have to earn it. That's the truth. I mean, there's no shortcut.
I think that's true, because there's so much noise on self-development, belief, all this out there, and actually it comes down to the same message, isn't it? It's actually, you can believe, but you've got to go and do it. You've got to prove it. You've got to fail. and then you find strength within all that. And, you know, it is extraordinary, actually, seeing how this is all happening, but actually how people are getting the message slightly wrong. They just think that if they could believe, it'll happen. Well, no, actually, you've got to go put some hard work in and maybe make a fool of yourself, or maybe not get it right. But it is, I think, you know, we've said it before, but it's learning from those lessons. You know, learning once you've done that. So learning from your mistakes as opposed to keep repeating them.
Yeah, literally. I mean, I always, you know, there are four things that when I look at my life and where I am now, belief is definitely absolutely critical. You know, motivation, your motivation again comes from what you've just said around how that belief manifests itself. You know, decisions that you make will shape your destiny, but to understand that you can't be airy fairy about it. You have to roll your sleeves up. You know, every journey starts with the first step forward, and that is true. And you don't really have to be very good at everything. Do you know what I mean? You can just go and do. I mean, I'm not a very good adventurer, but I've done so much of it now. I kind of sit on a long but top table of living explorers, which is ridiculous, really. But it is ridiculous. But, you know, it's just that it's time, and it's just doing what you do. And then underneath motivation is you have to have an ambition to want to strive for excellence. And you know, as Steve Jobs said at Apple, and I've always loved this, you know, you must be a yardstick of quality, and in everything you do, and it doesn't matter what it is, your relationships, how you run your home, how you manage your friends, how you in business, and again, the army is very, very good. The military is a very good backdrop for this, because it over centuries it's fine-tuned how people get the best out of individuals at any level in that command structure. And we in particular in the British military do this very well. I mean, we really do. And I mean, you've seen it first. You've had a front row seat of all of this. So I think all of that encapsulates what we're trying to do in making sure that trying to have a really fulfilled, life-enhanced life. And then I always wrap up the last bit with, you want to have fun. You know, you want to make sure that the journey is enjoyable, and that you really have your eyes open. You see stuff. I mean, listen, I have mates of mine who've done some of the stuff that, you know, I've been lucky enough to step into, and they don't really see it. You know, sometimes they bludgeon their way through, and it's such a shame because it's a privilege. Certainly in sailing, you know, the world is so damn beautiful, and to actually sometimes stop and just look and breathe and say, oh my God, you know, this is just magnificent, you know. So yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I think, you know, it does start with the aspects of belief and kind of stepping into the unknown.
What has been the thing that's really, what's probably been the most challenging thing for you during all these expeditions?
I'm a funny chap, Karen, because I don't really dwell on things, and I really don't. And I'm not dodging your question at all. I mean, I just sort of just have an idea, and once I lock an idea in, I will make sure it happens. And Tamsin always says to me, it's so funny, you come home and you just literally the very next day, you're just off on, it's like you haven't been away. And I mean, physically, they're all demanding, you know, all these things are demanding, but being physically pushed is really driven around your mental aptitude, really. And I think the last trip I did, I mean, if I was to give you a sort of answer, per se on your question was tough because I was too old for it, really. I mean, I don't mean that in that, so when I did this crossing of Antarctica, so basically we did it was an unsupported, most people when they do a crossing of Antarctica, they go from the Weddell Sea up the peninsula to the South Pole, which is not in the middle of Antarctica, and then they do a dogleg across to the Ross Sea. And Antarctica is an enormous piece of real estate. It's like 1.5 times the size of North America. And Jamie and I, my partner in crime on this trip, we went from the other side, which is basically below South Africa, from a Russian base called Novo, and we went through the middle. And I mean, basically, if something had happened to us, heaven forbid, it would have been very difficult for people to get to us. I mean, the nearest people to us when we were crossing were in the International Space Station, and it was just hard, and I was late 50s at the time, and Jamie was in his 30s, and he's a soldier as well, and he's as tough as anything. And I'd watch him. We were kite skiing, and we were dragging our life in sledges behind us, which weighed over 220 kilos. And every day we'd have these magnificent falls and kind of scrapes, and I'd watch him and I'd just go, oh my God, he must have hurt himself. And he'd come back, no, boss, I'm all right, all good. But I'd do the same thing, and I'd be like, oh Christ, I used to bounce, and your physicality as you get old obviously changes a bit. But I think all of them in their way have something which has been very introspectively good to explore.
There must have been also a responsibility that going off to all these different places about your health and looking after yourself and making sure that you were in a peak condition. So how did you go about that?
Well, I've always been fascinated. My mum was a big yogi, and also kind of, quite visionary really around food and what you eat and how you eat. And actually, funny enough, with you when we did that endurance race, with everything that New Ways was doing around supplements, and I've always been interested in that process. I think with all these trips, I mean, the military again, harping back to that, but planning and preparation is just, you can't beat it. So train hard. The last one was very interesting because we were collaborating with NASA and the European Space Agency through Stanford University in the States. And Jamie and I, for a year and a half, were the most highly tested individuals on the planet. So basically we gave blood, pee, poo, saliva every day, every day for a year and a half. And then we had masses of smart technology on. And so it was interesting, the data, how all of that has come back around. A lot of it, I mean, most of it was really around space exploration, because, I mean, we're on the brink of that really kicking off. And, if someone's going to go to Mars, as an example, they're going to spend 3 months in a small tin can getting there. And what does that look like? How are they? The psychology of the relationships between the crew, what's their physicality going to be, and there's very few places where you can actually test that. And interestingly, Antarctica is one of them because it's pristine. When you get onto the plateau of Antarctica, which is at about 11,000 feet, there's nothing, there's no entity, there's no virus, no bacteria, it's pristine. So it's a brilliant petri dish. And also from a psychological perspective, it's very bizarre because it's just white. So if you think about, after you and I have had our chat and you walk into your garden, you instantly, your mind is fueled with masses of beautiful things which will take you down a route, and it can be color, it can be whatever it is, a noise, and that will transcend itself into some kind of muscle memory about a story or what. But imagine if we took all that away from you, and all you had was just a padded cell, basically. And then you had to go and do something which was quite hard. So you were struggling with boredom, with repeatability, with pain because your body's hurting. And you had to do that for 8 hours. I mean, we would kite ski for about 8 hours a day, and we wouldn't put our kites down. So we'd just go for 8 hours. And so psychologically, it's a fantastic way of really stretching people and seeing, what's going to happen here. Well, is it going to go? Are you going to be? Is it a chaotic story? Is it a way of kind of you trying to unfold how you deal with this? And it's very interesting. So the well-being and the aspect of all of that was being studied. And interestingly, the results are sort of coming in now because we had done, Jamie and I, all this military training. They are a bit flummoxed at how relaxed we were. And again, it's around, you asked about the preparation, your preparation. And, as with all these things, it's life preparation. I was a soldier for nearly 10 years and it was the best thing I could have ever done. You learn from amazing people and so, I mean, a long-winded way of answering it, but I think, you can never prepare enough. And also you have to be brutally honest with who you are. And, we are very good at shape-shifting into presenting a version of ourselves that we feel everyone is going to be attracted to. And the thing about exploration or adventure in its rawest terms, you just cannot hide. There is no way of ducking or diving. Within 5 minutes, you will find out exactly people's strengths and weaknesses and where they're trying to hoodwink people. And so that's very good for you. I mean, it's terribly cathartic. It's a very cathartic way of learning important lessons around what brings the best out in you and what brings the best out in other people.
And where will these tests, will these things be published somewhere? Is what's it going to be used for long term? It'll all come out in. I mean, it's coming out now. Actually, I mean, a lot of that data is in scientific documents, which are sort of starting to come out into. But it's all very highbrow. It's fascinating, and the other thing, actually, oddly, that they were fascinated about is ageism. So, I mean, this doesn't apply to you because you must be looking at you 25 years younger than me. But I'm 60 now, and the new sort of growth business is what does it look like to stay healthy from 60 to say 80, so that your quality of life doesn't really change. So your physicality and your mental agility is pretty much the same all the way until pretty much your last chapter, and that last chapter is skinny rather than long. So what tends to have happened in the past is people will live for quite a long time, but say the last 5 years or whatever, they're very narrow. Their life becomes very narrow. They can't move around, so there's a lot of thought going into this and a lot of science, and it's fascinating. And we were guinea pigs to a degree around that, in that obviously I was, 30 years older than Jamie, or just under, but how far could you go before you really got very tired, and then how quickly did you recover, how much sleep did you need, and all of this data is fascinating when a body is being stretched. So yeah, it is all coming out. I'm writing a book which will come out in a few months' time on it all. So yeah. So it's quite interesting because Annabelle's just done the marathon, so she's put the boys to shame.
Yeah, good.
No, I don't mean that. No, so she's just on the marathon, but she used the Whoop. So she watched her recovery, and she worked as it Strava. So she did all that, and it would say 9:30, you need to go to bed. So she go, bye, I'm going to bed, whatever. And she was disciplined. And she's not a run, just like you said, she's not a runner. You said you're not an adventurer, but she decided to train for 4 or 5 months, and she did it. And was so proud of her. But she did it because she wanted to do it in the right way, without injury, and see how her body reacted to it, really, as well.
The challenge is such a brilliant thing to do, and clever her, and really complimentary, because that will lead on to something else. It'll lead on to something else, and as we were saying, growth through just learning and wanting to do things and explore.
So going on to a couple of other things I want to cover really with you is that, first of all, so this amazing company that you're working with, or that you own, Joro, and I just looked at it yesterday, and it said, where generations come together, where horizons grow with you, where hearts thunder, where great stories begin, and where boundaries fade. I mean, it's so powerful, and you're going to places that are extraordinary. How did that all come together?
Well, there's 3 of us, and my 2 partners are early 30s. But I think youth today is much more in tune with lessons that we're sort of learning our generation has learned a bit later, in that they're very conscientious, they're very exacting, they're very hardworking. And anyway, the 3 of us got thrown together really through circumstance, luck really, I guess. And I mean, the truth is, travel has been a part of my life all my life. So it was a sort of obvious thing to do. And Joro has been built around, obviously, we are a travel company, but we want to be a travel company with a difference, in that we really want to lead with sustainability, which in itself is a bizarre thing to say, because travel is part of the problem. Planes and too many planes, etc., but that doesn't mean that's not going to stop. So we were one of the first travel companies in the world to be B Corp, and through Joro we started something called the Conscious Travel Foundation, which is a non-profit which basically highlights stuff. So we are a net zero company, and if you were doing a trip with us and I suddenly say, well, look, Karen, you need to pay 250 quid to your carbon offset, and you would very rightly say, well, where's it going? What do you do with it? And it's a bit of an unknown science, really. So we've really tried to dissect that and look at it and be a bastion of helping other companies what that means. But we feel that what travel really is it's about opening people's eyes to not just restoring them being tired or wanting to recharge, but to open their eyes to what's out there and how fulfilling that is, that journey. We are a niche business in that we kind of, we do lots of stuff at the extremes, which is always quite complicated. And again, it's we're almost a military company, in that the exacting aspect of, how we measure and how we look at the logistics of these things, which are quite complex sometimes. But it's an absolute joy. We have fabulous clients. We've got a really lovely team, and touch wood, we are going from strength to strength. But we are very meaningful. We have a very clear ethos around wanting to make change along the journey, which thus far we've been able to do, which is very encouraging.
Change in sense of being conscious of travel and what you're doing.
Yeah, I think, how you travel and sort of lessons that you, I suppose, you take away, from your experience. I mean, we're slightly niche. We tend to look after sort of fairly wealthy individuals who, in their own right, are all very interesting, and they're pretty philanthropic around what they do and how they live their life. And so we just sort of want to keep that journey going in highlighting lots of the issues that are out there, but doing it in a way which is not in your face, but more around education, really, where you see it firsthand. And so, yes, it's proving very effective. Is the reality, which is great.
That's amazing. Well, one day, maybe one day.
Of course you will. Richard's already phoning me now.
And then the other subject, which is your amazing work you've been with Tamsin and Roemer, and that's been an amazing brand, and you've run a business together. Now that can be quite hard for two people to do that. How's that all worked?
Well, I mean, yes, very dangerous thing to do. I mean, it's reality. I mean, it's a sort of you very quickly could fall into pretty hot water. However, the other side of that coin is there's no one more than you trust than your better half. So if it does work, it's phenomenal, actually. And the difference, I suppose, or one of the ingredients you have to look at is to understand where fundamentally your skill sets are. I mean, Tam is a creative, and she was the creative director at Asprey and Garrett. So she's a very good jeweler, and I'm good at carrying bags. So as long as you know where and what you're doing, then it's fine. I mean, Roemer's 20 years old now, and we've had lots of different guises. We used to do cashmere and handbags. We now just do beautiful jewellery, and it's funny. We've just come back from India where we do all our manufacturing, and I sort of look at Tam when we're away, and I just think this is madness, because we're here together. We love this country. We have a really well-trodden route and all these amazing craftsmen who we work with. And I just think how lucky, and we make stuff. And that's the other thing, which I think is in Joro, we make dreams come true. And at Roemer, we make beautiful things for people, which they will become heirlooms. And so it's funny. I mean, it's funny where you find yourself, but it's a real delight, I have to say. And it's fantastic to see someone who's very talented at work and happy doing what their passion is. And then, Tam will design something, and then X amount of time later, a very clever craftsman produce something, and we'll look at something which is just wondrous, and that will go into someone's lifestyle and into their home. And yeah, I must say, it's a very, very lovely thing to do.
Well, I think it's extraordinary that, and I know what a rock she's been for you with all the travelling, and I've had the fortune of meeting her a few times, but also wasn't she a model? But she's just such a beautiful person, and it's
she's cool.
Yeah. But you
definitely batting way above my weight. There's no denying that.
Oh, well, I'm not going to answer that.
It's true.
I could go on. You and I can talk for hours, and we will talk for hours. It's been so lovely to have you and to talk through everything. And honestly, I am in awe of everything you do. I know you sort of you push it down a bit, but honestly, it is incredible. And I think you are an example to so many people out there. And I think you said, it's all in us. We've only got to do it and choose to do it and go and find that way. And I think what was the lovely thing that you used to talk about, making the invisible visible. And I love that. There are three things I'd like you to leave our listeners with, three really important things that have shaped your life. And also that great quote, which I have never forgotten, which I think you ended the TED Talk with.
Three things. I think for one to be curious is a beautiful thing. To be brave and to be resilient, because all three of those will at some stage open your eyes. Some of it is good and some of it is bad. But I think those three have carried me, have carried me to here with enormously satisfying, eye-opening, and stunning fuel enhancing things. The quote that I love is from Goethe, which is, "Whatever you believe you can do or dream you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, magic, and power in it."
I love it. Actually, I have the whole one, and I think it was after one of your talks or someone's talk. I have it out there, and I think it's so important. Thank you.
It's so true, isn't it?
Yeah, but it is so true, and it's you sort of said. But I think when you were saying that, Tamsin said, gosh, you come back and you're on the next thing, and it's like you put your mind to it. And I think that I asked three things because for me, if you ask me what Eat Nourish Love stands for, the power of three is to inspire, engage, and bring people together. And also, this podcast is lots of lovely stories, but to believe. To have the tenacity, hard work, we can make so many things happen. And as I said, that's something that I see so strongly in you and Ham as well. So it's been so lovely to have this, and I look forward to it. Can you just let people know where you are and where Joro is and where Roemer is, so if they want to look up anything?
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Well, I just want to say something, Caroline, to you, because I can throw all that back at you, because you are a very inspirational person. And I think what you're doing, it's such a good platform, and you're the right person to be at the helm of it. So don't stop it. It's a really, it's important. We only have one stab at this life, and, it's so good when you have people who are good at harnessing the way other people can learn, and that's what you do amongst many other things so well. So well done.
Thank you.
Complimentary.
Thank you.
Yes, Joro. Our website is joroexperiences.com, and Roemer is roemer.com. So yes, thank you.
Brilliant.
And thanks again. Lovely seeing you. And
so good to see you.
We will talk very soon.
Thanks, Justin.
Ciao,
Thank
ciao.
you. Bye.